So, as you can tell from my opening statement, I'm very concerned about the issue of impoundments. Are you familiar with the concept?
Of course, Senator.
You understand that it involves freezing funds that are to be allocated by law?
Senator, I'm familiar with the impoundments. I also understand we're having this conversation in the middle of the fiscal year as opposed to after the fiscal year.
Do you understand that the Constitution of the United States assigns the power of the purse to Congress, and do you follow that understanding?
Absolutely.
So you understand that when you impound funds, you are violating the law?
No, Senator. We are going to follow all statutory obligations, and we will abide by all laws.
But you're not. You're impounding funds against the law.
We absolutely disagree with you very strongly.
And the courts have also found it's not just against the law, it's unconstitutional.
If you're citing a particular district court judge, Senator, that's one thing. But there's a lot of district court judges coming up with their own interpretations of the law. That'll go through litigation processes,
So
but at
it
the
is the
EPA,
Supreme Court of the
follow all
United
laws.
States that has weighed in. And do you consider the Supreme Court not to be a legitimate source of decision-making?
Of course, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land.
Then why are you not following the Supreme Court's understanding of the Constitution and the law?
We are following all laws and the Constitution, Senator.
Then why have you frozen $1.7 billion in EJ grants illegally and unconstitutionally?
They are neither illegal or unconstitutionally frozen, Senator.
Are they legally frozen?
Yes, Senator.
Under what authority of the law?
Senator, Congress appropriates funding, and then say if the Biden administration is in place last year and they're at the beginning of the fiscal year, they might apply their own administration's policy priorities. So they might decide to send money to, say, the state of Alaska, and they might include aspects of fighting for equity or education instead of remediation.
But it wasn't the Biden administration that passed this law, it was Congress.
Oh,
and so this is in the law as written and as signed by his president, and yet you're defying it.
Yeah, Senator, it would be important that the premise of your question, I mean, we're going to have to just disagree as strongly as possible.
You've also frozen
whether
the
or not
greenhouse
anything was
gas
done
reduction funds, again, illegally and unconstitutionally. Are you going
Neither
to follow
illegally
the
or
Constitution?
unconstitutionally, Senator.
Well, we now have several court decisions that have said you have acted, and you referred to district court decisions, but you don't agree with those district courts?
Senator, if you're referring to a district court decision that was then stayed by the D.C. Circuit, then I would also encourage you to look at the appeals process, which is important. And as you referenced earlier in a prior question, how important it is to look at the Supreme Court. Well, then that message that you would be making to the D.C. District Court judge is that the D.C. District Court judge didn't even have jurisdiction over that case and it belonged inside the Court of Federal Claims. I agree with you how important it is to consider the decisions of the Supreme Court.
So there is one district court decision you abided by, and that was related to the clean school buses. If other district courts say that this is an illegal impoundment, an unconstitutional impoundment, will you follow the findings of those district courts, or will you simply appeal it upwards?
We will abide by all laws and the United States Constitution at all times.
Well, again, the administration has responded to some district court decisions by saying we will simply appeal it. We'll seek a stay in an appeal. Will you follow, when a district court says you've illegally impounded funds, will you follow that district court decision?
Well, as you pointed out, Senator, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land. So if a district court judge makes a decision, we are not going to assume that the United States Supreme Court is going to agree with that district court.
Even though the Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that impoundments are unconstitutional. So your decision is to simply appeal to the Supreme Court seeking a different decision this time around?
Well, I know that we're talking about hypotheticals of district court decisions to come, but as far as the district court decisions
It's actually
that
not
have been made,
hypothetical because we already have a series of district court decisions saying that this is illegal and
and
unconstitutional.
as far as the district court decisions that have been made, it's important to note, as I stated a minute ago, the district court judge decision that you're referencing in the D.C. Circuit was instantly stayed by the D.C. Circuit.
Do you understand that impounding funds essentially makes the appropriation power of Congress very difficult? We have to reach decisions about funding that is important to Alaska, to Oregon, but also to every region of the country. And if then we strike this law, we strike these decisions to help address environmental issues in every part of the country, and then the executive comes along and says, we want the power of the purse, we're going to treat these laws as suggestions, we're going to freeze these funds for programs we don't like, or regions we don't like, or congressional districts we don't like, that completely undermines the dialogue and the ability of here in Congress to produce bipartisan bills?
Senator, I don't know if on either side of the dais I've ever heard in one round of question more premise of questions that I possibly disagree with. I refuse to waste $1 of tax dollars, period.
Since you are violating both the law and the Constitution, will you follow your oath? And if you can't follow your oath, will you resign from your office?
Yeah. Senator, listen, you like to preface your questions with declaring everything unconstitutional and illegal. We couldn't possibly disagree more strongly with what you're saying. What I do believe would be illegal is for me to play along where I'm seeing unqualified recipients getting funding, where I see an entity like a $2 billion recipient, Power Forward Communities, that gets $100 of GGR funds in 2023, and then they get $2 billion in 2024. When I see self-dealing and conflicts of interest, loading up recipients of people who are Biden officials and Obama officials and Democrat donors, when I see wording of financial agent agreements and account control agreements that tie the hands of the EPA behind its back, will I play along with that? No, absolutely not, because this is the good
In which case you should resign, because the president is involved in self-dealing at a level we have never seen on these crypto.
Senator, if I refuse to waste money, I should resign?
Madam Chair, I will just conclude by saying this issue of impoundments is an extraordinary challenge. The Supreme Court has ruled twice. The Constitution is clear. You took an oath to the Constitution, and it's extremely destructive of our legislative process for you to be engaged in this.
Let's move to Senator Fisher.
Administrator, good to see you and welcome.
Thank you.
Administrator, are you familiar with Thomasville, Georgia?
I don't know. I've been in a lot of parts of Georgia. I was just in Georgia about a week and a half ago.
Thomasville's in southwest Georgia. It is a great town known for Southern hospitality. Great people, Mayor Mobley, Pastor Rich. There's a lot of agricultural activity around there. There's also a history, a legacy of heavy industry that has led to significant air pollution, and there remain significant concerns about air pollution, specifically particulate matter 2.5, and reported high levels of leukemia and pneumonia in and around Thomasville. And as you know, oftentimes these rural communities don't get the love and attention of the federal government. They can be forgotten. In Georgia, big cities tend to get a lot of the federal support. So there was great news for the good people of Thomasville last year when they won an EPA grant to help build a new health clinic, rehabbing the gym in the school to build a new federally qualified health center near 3 daycare centers, as well as to upgrade wastewater infrastructure. Earl Williams, who leads the Thomasville Community Development Corporation, called the grant a game changer. Mayor Mobley said the award represented a, quote, transformative opportunity to make vital health and safety improvements. But Administrator, you canceled the grant, and I'd like to know why.
So I'm looking at, this was part of the Environmental and Climate Justice Block Grant Program.
That's right.
So and this gets to an earlier interaction that we had, and Senator Rounds got at it as well. When Congress appropriates a block of funding, an administration is going to apply their policy priorities to how that money is going to get spent. A new administration comes in. We still have to spend the appropriated funding unless something changes with
Administrator,
Congress.
with respect, I understand the appropriations process. My question is why you canceled this grant. What is it about building a new health clinic and upgrading wastewater infrastructure for my constituents in Thomasville, Georgia, that's inconsistent with administration policy?
So I don't have the full grant in front of me. I only have a top line, which program it came out of. So when a new administration comes in and they apply their policy priorities,
You're repeating yourself. My question is why you canceled this grant.
So when a new administration comes in this case, President Trump put out executive orders as it relates to environmental justice with regards to DEI. I would imagine that if we
What does
looked
this
at
have
more
to do
details,
with, Is a new health clinic for Thomasville, Georgia woke?
As I imagine, as we look through the details of the particular program, there must be some aspects of this applying the last administration's priorities on environmental justice.
Here's a
DEI.
community that suffered from air pollution, has a high disease burden as a result. Finally, the federal government comes, they're going to help build a health clinic and upgrade some infrastructure. You canceled the grant. Devastating for the community. Here's what the head of the Community Development Corporation said about your decision to cancel this grant, denying my constituents a new health clinic and new wastewater infrastructure, a decision you made that hurts my constituents in Thomasville. Here's what he said, quote, "We all worked so hard for this, and we won. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's gone. And it was just a great sense of disappointment. It was almost like I lost a good friend." He sent me another letter, said, quote, "Our community is devastated. You hurt my constituents, and I don't need a civics lesson on the appropriations process or a broad critique of this program. I want to know why you canceled this grant."
Senator, when you go back to them and ask, well, did you find out why the grant got canceled?
Well, do you know why? I'm asking you. I'm asking you canceled the grant. I don't need to ask them why the grant got canceled because it was your decision. So tell me why you canceled the grant.
You could say I asked the question and then decided to spend the entire 5 minutes cutting him off 8 times in the middle of his first answer, so I was unable to get a full response.
Why don't you answer the question specifically and directly? Why did you cancel this grant? Why are you denying my constituents a new health clinic and new wastewater infrastructure?
Do you want me to repeat anything that I said in the past?
I want you to actually answer the question with specificity and not give a broad critique of this overall program or a lesson on how the appropriations
If you were listening
process
to anything
works.
that I said, Senator,
Okay,
I'd
you don't have
already
an
answered
answer.
Say whatever you want, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.